Hello and welcome to another segment of KONE Conversations, a podcast featuring one-on-one interviews with various employees and subject matter experts from KONE, a global leader in the elevator and escalator industry. I'm Kevin Metz. On a frequent basis, we get behind the scenes with key players and those in the field to deliver their unique insights and perspectives from KONE. On this episode, we're joined by Bruce Norden, Director of Healthcare and Industrial Verticals for KONE. Welcome, Bruce. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Bruce, as we do with all of our guests on KONE Conversations, we like them to provide our listeners a look into what their day-to-day is like, or their specific role at KONE. Tell us a little bit about your role as Director of Healthcare and Industrial Vertical.
Yes, thank you. Well, as my title indicates, I oversee two vertical markets within KONE, the healthcare market and the industrial market. These feature clients where we have national accounts, such as like in healthcare, Ascension, Health, Kaiser, Permanente, HCA, and it also includes a group of group purchasing organizations, GPOs, such as Health Trust, Premier, and Vizient. On the industrial side, examples of customers are GSK, ADM, and Cargill, just to name a few. So that's kind of our clientele base. But my roles day to day, what I deal with is customer needs and requests. These national account customers may call me needing something and wanting something. I have another person on my team named Dean Enrico, who also manages the healthcare accounts, the key accounts that I mentioned above. Another part of my role is I generate and I review potential growth opportunities within the healthcare industry. We try to vet them out with a program we call Sandler, look for the customer's pain points and see if it's a good opportunity and candidate and a fit for KONE. So I do a lot of generating business growth. Another thing, what I do is I assist, educate, and promote the healthcare and industrial offerings within our KONE network. What I mean by that is there's a lot of salespeople out there. And when we tender something to the healthcare market, we like to have it customized. We like to talk the talk example of, their language. A good example, like in healthcare, is there's a thing called ICRA. It stands for Infection Control Risk Assessment. Now, there's no other vertical that would have something like that. But in hospitals, if you're dealing with hospitals, you have to deal with that. It's all about infectious disease controls. Hospitals have different zones in which they regulate and assess risk for infection disease control. A lot of people wouldn't even think of that when they're thinking of elevators. The elevator pits. Hospitals deal with hazmat, right? Your syringes and your needles and all that stuff. That stuff falls down within the elevator pit. Well, we have to make sure our union employees and our employees are safe, and that's just a different type of hazard that they would deal with. So that's just some of the things that my role does is those four items mentioned above.
Well, I know last year and this year certainly have a major focus on health and well-being, and of course, a huge thanks to our healthcare heroes. As you mentioned, KONE does collaborate with a number of major healthcare facilities. What trends or issues or challenges have you been hearing on a regular basis from these key customers, especially over the past year?
Well, one key common denominator that I hear constantly within the healthcare is this patient experience. They are really focused on the patient experience as number one. And in fact, a lot of the people I deal with, their incentive at the hospitals are directly related to the patient experience. Let me cite you an example. One of them said to me, Bruce, if the elevator button is burned out, and if a patient complains or a visitor to that patient complains and it goes into the file, that is a demerit because it affects the overall experience with it. So you need to become one of us and you're our employees and you need to blend in. So patient experience kind of overrides anything. But when you asked about the trends, what you see in the medical industry is a lot of consolidation and mergings of hospitals. Hospital equipment is very expensive, as we all know, and a lot of these small towns and smaller hospitals can't keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, with the medical, for the type of machinery they do. So you're going to see a lot more consolidation of hospitals. The other thing you're going to see is a lot of remote care facilities. If you haven't seen them in your neighborhood, you will be, where you have a remote, so you don't have to run into the hospital. You got these remote care. So that's a trend that's definitely you're going to see more of in the future. Remote care is taking a big push forward in this, especially during this COVID time, where you just make an appointment with the doctor and you do a teledoc. It's a video conference. The trends I do see, though, when it comes to enhance the patient experience that affect elevators are cab sanitizers, where we sanitize the air within the elevator. Touchless buttons. Maybe you kick a button down at the bottom toward the floor, so you don't have that transferring of diseases or infection. And 24/7 uptime will always be a critical trend.
I know these medical facilities have certainly been stress tested this year, and it's great you mentioned that people flow. It's almost like patient flow, and COVID is adding that layer of that health and well-being awareness and new protocols. How does KONE technology actually help these facilities keep up with these patient workloads, and how do they keep that reliability and uptime?
Well, it's 24/7 predictive maintenance, just like you do in your medicine, right? It's easy to sell within this vertical because the elevator's life is so much like a person's life. They're born, they're installed, then they're taken care of. You have to do preventative measures there. And as a human gets old and as an elevator gets old, they need a little more assistance, a little more tender loving care, and certain parts need to be replaced. And then they need to be a total modernization. So um, 24/7 predictive maintenance, let's go ahead and prevent something from happening before it happens. There are signals and signs in elevators, just like there are in humans that have a fever, or a blood pressure. You're always getting your blood pressure, right? Well, elevators have some tell signs too, and that's what 24/7 does. It grabs those tell signs and it sends a mechanic out there before an incident would happen or unscheduled downtime. So, that technology is going to be key in the future. Where Koni has a great healthcare program, so to speak, or a program for the elevator based on usage and age and type of use and the environment it is, it's still a mechanical piece. Adjustments have to be addressed, replacements have to be addressed, just like you would with people. So what I think you see from a technology side is 24/7 is the way of the world going forward. You're going to see more sanitation of the elevator cabs in the air because of the sensitivity now around it with, you see the mask. You're going to see touchless buttons. You're going to see more destination control, and you're going to see the 3D door operator more, where it projects out about a foot and a half like you going into a grocery store, and the doors start to reopen before the person gets within that threshold. So that's kind of where I see technology playing a major role.
Yes, I know that a number of guests have been mentioning the 24/7 connected services from KONE, where it's not just reactive or even proactive anymore, but it is predictive. The technician is able to show up at the site with the right solution to identify the right problem right there on site in advance. So that's some great technology for these healthcare facilities. What do you predict for the future of new designs or these new healthcare facilities being constructed? What kinds of things do you think they need to take into consideration?
Well, I've already mentioned some earlier, but I kind of base it down. If I had to give a prediction for the future, what does the technology and healthcare look like for around elevators and what needs to be done? The first one is 24/7. It will become the norm. It's going to be your heart monitors of the elevators to assist the elevator's health program. So that's going to become a norm, not hey, let's purchase this now for that. You're also going to see an asset management planning and prioritization within that plan um, that addresses the critical units. Hospitals have elevators that no other verticals have, like a helipad elevator, right? And as I always said, the elevator is part of a link of the chain within providing that healthcare service. And a chain, as we all know, is only as strong as its weakest link. So the problem in the healthcare industry is we have a bunch of critical elevators and they've never wanted to take them down long enough to modernize them. Um, so um, they're old and then they become unreliable. So I think you're going to see more on asset planning and prioritization as number two in the future. Number three, Uptime and response time is always going to be there. That has to be up forefront. I mean, these people think with ambulances, they think in time. They're looking for how quick can you be here. It has to be uptime. It has to be available for any type of emergency situation. And last but not least, what's going to be coming is better visual communication within the elevators and cars. A recent code changed, and as the cities and counties adapt, you're going to have visual communication within a car. Instead of just that telephone that you can't see or whatever, you're going to have visual communication, so there's better communications for that lifeline inside an elevator if an incident should occur. So those are the four things I kind of see if I had to give a prediction that you're going to see more of in the future.
No, it sounds like it's certainly the trend of smarter cities and a smarter, more efficient healthcare. I'm glad certainly KONE is innovating some technology that will play a part. Well, Bruce, that's actually all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights on the healthcare vertical for KONE.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Be sure to visit kone.us and our YouTube channel for an archived copy of today's episodes of KONE Conversations with Bruce, and for more information on the KONE solutions, technology, and innovations discussed today. Watch our social media channels for information about upcoming guests of future podcasts. I'm Kevin Metz. Thanks for being here, and join us again for more KONE Conversations.